What you're about to see is an installation demo of ResistoFlash. And the first thing that you're going to see is that I'm measuring the polyester. The polyester is purposely a little bit wider than the chimney because we're going to install it just like you would metal, which means we're going to turn the corners starting from the bottom of the chimney and working ourselves to the top side. And so we've measured the polyester, and then I prefer to use scissors, although you can use a utility knife. I cut it and I set it to the side, and then I'm putting in the ResistoFlash product itself, and I'm just going to paint it on. It's about the consistency of a thick mayonnaise. This particular day it was very warm. In colder weather it might spread just a little thicker. Also, if the product has been in the can for a long time, it might be a smidgen thicker, but I've used product that has been it's as much as 3 years old unopened, and a can has been open and then resealed. You can unseal it, go in, and there'll be a skim coat on top, and you'll take that skim coat off and what's below will still be workable. And I've done that with a can that was opened and then resealed after 6 months. Now I'm embedding the polyester reinforcement. It's 6 inches wide, so I'm putting 3 inches onto the shingles, 3 inches onto the chimney, embedding it turned the corner on both sides, and then painting the ResistoFlash over top of the polyester reinforcement. You can see that in just a moment I'm going to turn the corner, flash it to the upside or turn it to the upside. At the end I'll be coming down the side and I'll be turning to the downside so that I'm thinking like water, or I'm going with the flow. I'm going to make sure that my overlaps go the same direction as the water is going. Now you can see that I have masking tape going around the chimney. In this particular case there was a mess of product that was already on the chimney. I took it off, I cleaned it off a little bit. There's residue of old elastomeric sealant or plastic cement. And what I did was I put that duct tape on just to keep a nice straight line. Quite honestly, when people are 30 feet away on the ground looking up at their chimney, you can use the paintbrush, and that's a disposable paintbrush. This will not be usable once that stuff dries. But you take that paintbrush and you can cut a pretty straight line that anybody would be satisfied from the ground. But you know, duct tape's cheap, or masking tape's cheap, and so I just took a few feet of it in order to cut myself a nice straight line. But this is kind of a complicated situation because you can see I have 2 different roof lines at the base of the chimney. This is where it'd be very difficult to metal flash it, but ResistoFlash makes this a very easy project. So I started at the bottom, I flashed out at the very lowest point on the chimney, and now I'm moving up the side. Now that's with the concept of the rain hitting the chimney, going down the chimney. Of course we want our flashing to go over top as the rain's coming down to direct the water to the outside of the chimney and then off of the roof. So I've done this little leg right there where the transition in the roof is, and I'm flashing that. So I've done liquid reinforcement and painted on the liquid again at the lowest point, and then I painted on some more liquid, embedded more polyester, painted more liquid on this little leg that's going on, and now I'm painting and preparing to do the highest point of the bottom side of the chimney here. 3 to 4 inches onto the chimney, turning the corners just like metal flashing. 3 to 4 inches onto the shingles or that torch down low slope material that's on the flatter part of this house. The ResistoFlash is moisture cured. The humidity in the air will cure it, and it will be dry to the touch in 2 to 3 hours, depending on how hot that particular day is. However, you don't want to put it on right before it rains, and you certainly don't want to purposely put water on it because you'll accelerate the process too quickly and end up with some bubbles. So you want it to be a dry day. Now if it were to rain 6 hours from now, you're not going to have a problem because you'll have a nice skim coat on the top. But if you were to put this down and it were to rain a half an hour later, that wouldn't be a good thing. You'll see once again I've put liquid down. Now I'm putting in the polyester reinforcement. I'm turning the corners. On that little leg there, the transition from the shingled roof to the low slope roof, I'm turning that corner as well, and then I'm going to paint right over top of it. And really what you're doing with ResistoFlash is you're making a membrane, just like a low slope roofing membrane. You're making a membrane. The difference is that, number one, this is polyurethane, and number two, this is going to congeal with whatever product it's sticking to. So in this particular case, as opposed to as it's sticking to the bricks, instead it is going into the pores of the brick and congealing with the brick. There I took the duct tape off so that I'd get myself a nice straight line, and you can see that right there. I purposely went high because you can see the kind of product that was underneath the metal flashing when I tore the metal flashing off, and that just looks ugly. I didn't have to chip it off. I didn't have to put a lot of labor into removing it, but I did want to give it a nice uniform look. The ResistoFlash color is a musket brown color, and after you've painted, reinforced, and painted, you have a standalone product, UV resistant. Anything you put over top of that is going to be purely for aesthetics. This is UV resistant and has a 20-year warranty. So again, we started at the bottom, now we're on the sides, and you can see how I turn the corner so that as the water is flowing down, the water will flow over top of the product, as opposed to turning the corner and having it dead end into a seam and causing a possible leak. Now there's a transition from the low slope to the shingle part of the roof from about a 112 to a 412. So I've run my ResistoFlash up to the transition and a little bit beyond, and then I've embedded my polyester reinforcement, and I'm painting the ResistoFlash over top of that. Then I'm going to turn around and start at the top part of the side of the chimney, and I'm going to come down. And of course I'm going to overlap at that transition between the low slope and the shingles. I'll take the liquid 2 to 3 inches over top, the polyester 2 to 3 inches over top of the polyester that's right there at the transition, again making the water flow over top of the transition, and then I'll paint more ResistoFlash over top of this. Again, paint, reinforce, paint again. Now there is a gap between the chimney and the deck where the shingles are on, and the gap on this one is anywhere between 3/4 and an inch. So I've got a 6-inch piece of membrane. 5 inches of it are actually on solid surface, and there is a 3/4 inch to 1 inch gap underneath, but I've made a membrane that's bridging that gap, and so that's going to stay nice and watertight. Now as I'm finishing this particular side, I want to remind you that one of the things you want to do is, after you've done a flashing job, after you've ResistoFlashed something, you want to clean up your job site. If it's a full roof, you want to go put your ridge cap on, you want to clean up your job site, and then come back a couple hours later and just check for pinholes. Make sure that there's no place that you missed. You know, when you're right there working on something, you get a little sun blind and you stop spotting things that you should be able to see. So walk away, do something else, come back, check for pinholes. If you see any pinholes, just take a little bit more of the ResistoFlash and your disposable paintbrush, paint over top of the pinholes with your ResistoFlash, and you'll be good to go. Now in this particular case, I'm on the other side. I'm painting my first layer of ResistoFlash. I'm going to reinforce it after I paint up the chimney and down over top of the shingles. And then I have my duct tape up there again. In this particular segment, I'm not painting all the way up to the duct tape. I'm going to do the back side and then come back to the duct tape, just so that I can get this video done more quickly for you. A reminder, ResistoFlash will stick to anything. Brick, hardy plank, wood. Now you need to be aware that vinyl siding is a special case, and it's kind of something that you have to figure out on your own, because obviously the J channel that would be running up the side all the way up the corner of a chimney would direct water into the siding, and so you're going to have to plug that up first before you can ResistoFlash it, or you're going to end up directing water in under the ResistoFlash. Those of you who have done a flashing job on vinyl siding will understand what I mean. Now, in this can, that's a gallon can of ResistoFlash, in that can is approximately 7 to 10 chimneys. So when you buy a can of this, you'll be able to flash out a chimney, turn around and put the lid back on, and go do another chimney or a skylight or something a week later or a month later. And again, there'll be a skim coat on the top of the liquid inside the can. You take a stick, take that skim coat off, and what's underneath will still be usable ResistoFlash. So I'm starting to cut a line underneath the duct tape, but I'm not going to do that for the full video. But I would go back and paint the rest of that. And again, that's just for aesthetics. It's to give it a nice uniform look. Now you notice when I did the side, I turned the corners just like I did the other side. Now I'm on the back side. And just a reminder that those shingles that are behind the chimney, for 2 to 3 shingles behind the chimney, you want to seal the shingles. Make sure that all the way through the bottom side of those shingles that it's sealed up, because water's going to come down the back of the roof, it's going to hit the chimney, and it's going to back up for a short period of time, depending on how heavy of a rain you get, and it could try to go up and under the shingles. So you want to seal those shingles so that the water can't get up and under the shingles. You'll think that your chimney's leaking. It's not. It's the shingles behind the chimney. The water hits the chimney, backs up, goes up underneath those shingles. You need to seal those off. Now, see how I'm cutting? Just a little slice there on both sides. That way, when I put this into a 45 and I embed it into the liquid, I can turn the corner. And once again, what I'm doing is I am going to, I have that fabric, my homemade membrane of ResistoFlash is going to direct the water over top or on the outside of the side flashing, just like you would with metal flashing. We're going to paint this on, and after we paint this on, we're going to be finished, other than to come back after a couple of hours and check for any pinholes. Now, a couple of reminders. If you don't like this look, I mean, this is a UV resistant product, just like you're seeing it right now. It has a 20-year warranty. If, however, you don't like the color or you don't like the surface, then after it is dried for 2 hours, you can come back, you can paint a third coat on, and you can embed loose granules into it that match the color of the shingles. You can cut the tabs off of these 3-tab shingles, paint a third coat on, and embed the tabs into the ResistoFlash, and of course that would match up with the chimney perfectly. What's underneath is the ResistoFlash, which is actually doing the waterproofing. The 3 tabs themselves are not part of the waterproofing. Or if this is a metal roof, you could actually seal up the chimney on a metal roof, do paint, reinforce paint, and then come back with pre-bent metal and embed the metal into the ResistoFlash.